Well, no matter who wins tomorrow, the next government is likely to have to deal with a divided upper house, which will have to pass any major policies such as the privatisation of the poles and wires. Our state political reporter Brigid Glanville has been speaking to the kingmakers who could hold the crucial upper house seats, and she joins us again from Parliament House. Brigid, how important will the minor parties be in this election?
Well, Juanita, if Mike Baird wins the election tomorrow, it's not guaranteed that his privatisation plans will get through. As you mentioned, he needs the support of the upper house. At the moment, the Shooters and Fishers Party and Fred Nile's Christian Democratic Party hold the balance of power. Now, they both say, along with the Greens, that they don't support privatisation, although Fred Nile is open to negotiation. Robert Borsak from the Shooters and Fishers Party, Fred Nile and the Greens MP John Kaye joined me earlier today.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Now, Mike Baird's bid to privatise 49% of the state's electricity assets will only happen if it gets through the upper house. Let's start. Robert Borsak from the Shooters and Fishers Party. Why won't you support it?
We won't support it because it's primarily, in our view, not good for households, it's not good for business, and it's simply not the right thing to do to hand away $100 billion worth of potential revenue for a $20 billion sugar hit now.
Fred Nile, the vote could come down to you alone. You've basically agreed to vote for it.
No, I've put out a policy that I want to call for a select parliamentary inquiry. In fact, I'll move that as soon as Parliament resumes after the election to fully investigate all the facts and figures, because we have such a conflict between what the government is saying and the opposition, are in total opposition to each other. So I believe the voters of this state have a right to know the truth after the election, and then the Parliament can vote for or against the leasing of the poles and wires.
But those conditions that you've put on a public inquiry, it's not very tough.
Well, we have a number of other conditions. That is to protect the workers' employment for 5 years, and a number of other conditions we've put out to the government as well.
But the Premier's already said that they can guarantee prices won't go up, and if you get your inquiry and it says that, then you'll pass it.
Well, that has to be seen. That'll depend on the inquiry, and you could be optimistic and say the inquiry will confirm the government's position. I hope it does, because the government's infrastructure program is of tremendous benefit to this state. We need it.
John Kaye, the $20 billion that the government wants to get from the lease will go towards building the second harbour rail crossing, which the government says will increase public transport capacity by 60%. Now, the Greens support public transport. Here's a solution.
No, this is a bad solution. It's a solution that's purchased at the cost of the state's economy, the future of being able to make the transition to 100% renewable energy. We've shown it's possible to raise $20 billion without relying on selling the wires and poles, simply by increasing taxes on property speculators making profits and on the very super profitable clubs.
You talk about the future renewable energy and that being the number one thing, but the fact is you need money to get there. Now, Bob Carr tried to privatise the electricity assets and the Greens didn't support it. Now we've got Mike Baird trying to privatise the electricity assets and the Greens didn't support it. And the asset, actually, when Bob Carr was doing it, was worth more money in relative terms. It's losing value. So why not sell it now and use that money to invest in things like renewable energy?
Because if we sell it now, it goes into private hands. The private hands will say they want to keep operating it the way it is, whereas we say we need to reconfigure the network. We need to create new opportunities for household-level renewable energy. We need to create new opportunities for trading energy across the grid between different renewable energy sources. Private owners won't be interested. They'll just want to maximise the amount of energy flowing from the old coal-fired power stations into households and businesses.
Robert Borsak, Mike Baird says there's no plan B. Now, you don't like plan A, but what would your price be when the government comes knocking?
What our price would be that the government needs to actually, they should have made the poles and wires plan B. Plan A should have been a proper infrastructure approach and put a long-term solution to a long-term problem. Anyone knows that if you're going to invest long-term, you need long-term money. What you shouldn't be doing is trying to grab a quick cash sugar hit now and try to put in place a solution that is, in the end, not even going to be delivered to the people of New South Wales inside 2019.
OK, so what happens if they offered more state land for hunting and removed some marine national parks? Would you then agree?
No, we wouldn't agree. Simply because our decisions are not based on a mere bagatelle. These are important keystone decisions for New South Wales. This government needs to seize the nettle and think about how they're going to finance long-term assets, long-term infrastructure with long-term financing solutions. What's going to happen if they run out of assets to sell?
But Mike Baird, if he does win on Saturday, he does have a mandate. The majority of New South Wales have voted for this. They know well and truly that he wants to privatise the electricity assets. Why should you be able to say no to that?
Well, I mean, there are two problems with that. Firstly, the first problem is I don't, and our pay doesn't subscribe to the fact that if you happen to fall over the line with a decreased majority, that's a mandate. And secondly, the People's House, the most democratically elected house with a statewide mandate, is in the upper house, and we believe that house is truly reflective of what the people want in relation to this particular matter.
John Kay, last election in 2011, Greens didn't preference Labor. This election, you are. Why the change?
There's no way we could have preferenced Labor in the last election. The stench of corruption, which turned out to be coming from a real source of corruption, was just too great. This time round, we don't think Labor's very good, but they're certainly better than the coalition. What they're doing is they're saying they won't privatise electricity. Well, whether we believe that or not after their track record, at least they're saying something about electricity, at least they're saying something about TAFE. Even if they're inadequate plans, they're better than what the coalition's got on the table. This is about a second choice for people in New South Wales.
What's your feedback that you're getting? We know that a lot of the coalition voters don't like privatisation. They do like Mike Baird. Do you think they're going to split their vote in the upper house, John Kay?
I think definitely, and I hope voters will understand that there's a chance to stop electricity privatisation by voting for parties that are absolutely committed to keeping the wires and poles in public hands. Track record of the party like the Greens, we've never voted for privatisation and never will.
Fred Nile, are you getting feedback on that?
Yes, there is a lot of concern amongst our membership over the future of the poles and wires. That's why I want to have that parliamentary inquiry, and I think we can put their fears to rest, that this in the long run will be of the greatest advantage for the progress of this state.
And Robert Borsak, you've been advertising, asking people to do just that.
Yeah, we've found that there's a large amount of concern out there, both in the bush and in the city, in relation to this sale of poles and wires. I think a lot of voters, regardless of what their lower house vote will be, will split the vote and it'll go elsewhere in the upper house.
We'll leave it there. Robert Borsak, Fred Nile and John Kay, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much.